Hi, hi everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about what we're doing this week, which is transitioning, if you will, out of the annotated bibliography assignment and moving into the research proposal assignment. So this midweek check-in is mainly focused on how to take the information that we've learned in the research and the annotated bibliography assignment, and see how some of those elements work in the research proposal. So thank you guys for coming today. Thank you guys for being a part of this. If you have questions along the way, if you don't want to say them, you may write them in the chat, or you can send me an email subsequently by messaging me through Canvas, and I'm more than happy to meet with you and to clarify a little bit more. Okay, so make sure that you don't hold any questions back. Give them all to me. I want to hear them. All right. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so we are in the course, and we are going to scoot down to we are going to scoot down to the annotated bibliography. All right. Okay, so a couple of things. First of all, the annotated bibliography assignment connects to the research proposal assignment in a couple of ways. First of all, they're both summary assignments, all right? So that's something you want to keep in mind. So we won't be doing any sort of direct quoting. Nothing should be in quotation marks except for the title of the text. So you want to keep this in mind. Uh, these are both summary assignments, so no direct quoting. All right, and this is in your syllabus, but I just want to remind you there should be no direct quotes. Uh, for this assignment, for the annotated bibliography, we should at this point be pretty familiar with the elements of the annotated bibliography. So, for instance, everyone should have an introductory statement that includes the title, the author, publication, and publication date. Everyone should at this point have little things resolved, like removing the et al. From the author's name, if you will, and replacing that with something like a team of researchers or team of doctors, etc. You also want to make sure that you are doing a really good job of double checking to make sure that you have the capitalization correct. You're using upper and lowercase letters for the author's names, for the titles. You're not using all caps. That just means that the person who inputted the information into the journal decided to go with all caps instead of following the capitalization rules for whatever reason. Usually it's just because it's easier and you don't have to worry about those rules. So they just put it in. So when you use the cite feature, all caps show up, and now it's your responsibility to go in and apply those capitalization rules before you submit it for grade for you. The other thing you want to pay attention to is you want to make sure that you've done small things like italicize the journal, right? This is a part of punctuation. This is a part of the editing process. So you want to make sure that's done. You want to make sure that your dates are written properly so that you've changed it from whatever format was used in the entry. And we saw those entries in the preliminary bibliography. You want to make sure that those things are written well when you put it into the paragraph, right? So you want to follow all of the basic composition rules for writing dates. And so I've given you a few things to consider here, all right, in terms of getting that done. Before you turn in this assignment, you want to make sure that you have double checked for all of these things. The introductory statement, in and of itself, uh, is a fraction of the 2 points that you get for each entry. Okay, I believe the introductory statement alone is worth, I think it's zero point 0.5 of that 2 point um, question. All right, so that's a pretty large chunk, and it's an easy sentence. So please get all of it down. All right. Okay. If you miss a little part of it, then you'll miss part of the point by points that come along with that. All right. So you don't want to miss anything. Get it all there. Are there any questions about what should be in your introductory statement? It's here. Include the title, author, publication, and publication date. Last thing, last point of clarity. Do not, and I repeat, do not include the volume and the issue number and the database and the permalink. None of that goes in this sentence. It is awkward and weird and clunky, and it does not make for good prose, does not make for good information. All right. That's a part of the entry that is very specific to the bibliographic entry. Don't copy and paste that thing and put it in a paragraph and say, oh, I'll just modify it. No, I only want these things. And your other professors for the rest of your life will only want these things. And some of them may tell you they don't want all of that. All right. So you want to make sure that you do that. All right. I'm moving on from this. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. I am looking. I'm looking. Okay. The next thing that you want to pay attention to is the summary thesis. It is the summary thesis. The summary thesis is the main idea of the article. Okay, so that should be written two ways. Number one, flawlessly. There should be no typographical errors in the summary thesis. Why? Because that one thought needs to be created and explained and communicated very clearly. It's the main idea. If I get nothing else out of this paragraph, I should know what the article's about, right? So you want to communicate that thing clearly. The next thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you use language that communicates that it is the overall message or the primary point. I can't tell you how many students forget to do this. And so it's sentence number two, so I can interpret it, but you don't want to leave anything to interpretation when you are earning points. You want to make sure you get all of those things. So to do that, be as clear as possible. And so you want to use things like overall message, primary point, primarily focuses on, the center message, something that lets me know this is the main idea, right? But don't say the main idea of the article is, because main idea is maybe something that we would say in K-12 education. For college, we want to say things that are very, I'm going to use my daughter's not so college lexicon here, collegey. You want to say things that are scholarly. My daughter says crazy stuff like that all the time, collegey. All right. So you want to make sure that you're using the right kind of language for that. All right. You want to make sure that you focus on editing. All right. And get these tiny details down. Now, if there are any questions on that, I'm happy to answer them. If not, I'm moving on. Questions in the chat? No questions? Okay. All right. Don't forget you can email me if you have them. Next, we're moving forward. The next part is making sure that your information is ordered logically, right? So you want to make sure that you're giving me the major details of the article. You want to make sure that you're putting them in the same order as they were originally given to you. Okay, so you want to do that by ordering them using transition words. All right, so if you have a list of transition words, before, next, afterwards, then, subsequently, etc., and you want to use those, fantastic. Those are available to you. If you need additional transition words, let me show you where to find them. In this module, we open up with this information where it says that I have a lot of emails where it says that um, we are writing the annotated bibliography, and it says writing the annotated bibliography for our class. Where is that? My computer's going crazy. Slow down. There it is, right here. So it's under this subheading. It's writing the annotated bibliography for our class. I'm not sure if you guys read this or looked at it, but if you did, it gives you basically all of the information that I'm going over now in a bite-sized chunk. But look at this. See, there's stuff about the introductory statement. Look at this. Here are a list of words that you can use. All right. Now, I thought to put this on the slide with the other information for the body paragraph. But then I thought that may be overwhelming. So if you want to, you can refer back to this page and it will give you a list of transition words. You'll want to use those between the major points that you offer about your article. Guide your audience through it by showing them first, second, third, so that they see where you are. The next thing that you can do if you want to use some sort of logic to create those body um, or the body of this paragraph is you can also, add ideas. So you could say, another idea, furthermore, likewise, moreover. And this is just saying that the author said this and then they offered additional ideas on this point. So these are called listing or adding words, right? So you want to make sure that you're using those in order to get the reader through your work. All right. Um, Now, at the end of this paragraph, you're going to use a conclusion transition word, and that's going to take you to where, or that's going to take you to the end of the article, and you're going to be communicating to your audience. We're at the end. So here's some smooth transitions. It concludes, she concludes, the results indicate, the outcome suggests. Listen, I won't consider it plagiarism if you copied and pasted something like this into that last sentence. I don't care. These are not words that I came up with. These are words that are out in the world for everybody to use. So use them. But do make sure that you are communicating with transition words where you are in the article. That's good for you. It's good for the audience and it's good for your future research because when you want to go back to these articles later, maybe for your analytical essay or your argument essay, you know exactly where this information is in the article. It's going to save you so much time. And I do this personally as I'm writing and producing things for my doctoral work. I actually use this format. So I know it will be helpful if you give it a shot. So do make sure that you use these transition words. I will be grading on your effectiveness in using transition words. Okay. Another thing that you want to be aware of when you're writing the body paragraph is the body of the paragraph is going to be your communication verbs, right? So we're going to move beyond saying it said, she said, they wrote, etc. Said and wrote are overdone. There are a million ways, well, not a million, there are at least 20 ways to say that someone's communicating something. And what you want to do, you want to be precise with that thing. So maybe they compared, or maybe they admitted, or maybe they remarked, or maybe they reported, or maybe they mentioned, or maybe they observed or measured, suggested or summarized, right? That's so much more precise than they said. All right. So you only have 5 of these to write. I think you can find a few ways to say said. All right. So you want to use those. Now, this is important because for each article you cover, you want to attribute the ideas that you were summarizing to the author so it doesn't sound like you were the person who's doing this writing, or I'm sorry, you're the person who did this research. You want to make sure that you attribute it to the author because they are the people who did the research. You are the person who's reporting what they said. All right. And this keeps what's called the objective tone, where you're looking at it as an observer. You're not the person who actually was in it and doing it. All right. And so when you're writing composition, when you're writing at the college level, you want to make sure that you're making these distinctions because you don't want to get involved with anything that even looks like plagiarism. Okay. You don't want to get involved with that at all. So I just want to make sure that you guys have the tools that you need. So go back to this page and make sure that you're able to access this and use it. It's a tool for you. All right. Um, we're going to go back into the assignment. I mean, there are a couple of good points here that are worth noting. Remember, each entry is only one paragraph. And don't forget, you have a minimum of 100 words for each entry. And don't forget, you can go a little over 300 words. You're not going to get any points off for going over 300 words. You will get points off, or either your summary won't be valid and it won't be able to be graded if you go under 100 words. All right. So just make sure you keep that in mind. All right, if there are questions, now's a good time to ask them. If not, I'm going to go back into the module very quickly just to make sure that we understand the information that I just communicated because we're looking at a sample of it. And then I want to talk about the research proposal assignment and how these two ideas correlate. All right. Okay. All right. This is where we were. Okay. So again, so you have your information here. Look, here's what you got to do. Ensure you use transition words. All right. Um, Make sure that you're clearly communicating points. And this is the kind of thing I'll be looking for. And then edit, you want to edit for small things, homophones, typos, removing the et al, etc. Just making sure that you've tidied up those small details. Listen, this is a great time to go to the Writing Center, great time to get involved with that. You can have a Writing Center instructor look over your work with you. It's a great time to learn your tendencies. Like if you make homophone errors, if they're there and they're still, a little confusing, your and yours still kind of, a little confusing, not sure where to put an apostrophe all the time. That's cool. A lot of people don't know where to put apostrophes. And for the love of God, most people don't know how to use commas, including people who own major corporations. And so there's nothing, shameful about not knowing how to use commas at this point. But if you get with a Writing Center instructor, they can maybe show you, any tendencies, fragments, rounds, etc. You can get those things early, start working on it as you put together, your subsequent papers and have it all hashed out before you get to English 1302. All right, if you need help with those types of things, the end of your RTL lab, I believe it's 789, it's fragments, run-ons, sentence types, and it's also commas. So it's a nice crash course into editing if you need help with that. All right. Okay, so I pretty much covered the information here. It just, this kind of just gives you an idea of how those transition words were used in the sample. Keep in mind, you definitely want to include the conclusion transition words to communicate the conclusion statement. All right. Are there any questions about any of this? Okie dokie. All right. I'm moving. Okay, so this is the original sample, and that is the edited sample. So that just kind of gives you some idea of how long it may take you to get through each one of your entries and to make sure that you have everything done. So do give time to this assignment to the best of your ability. And so, that will help you do what you need to do. All right. The next thing that we are going to do is talk about the research proposal. All right. Um, Give me 1 second to move into the next module. All right. So, our next item of business is to go into the research proposal assignment. For some reason, my computer is jumping way down to the end of the screen. All right. So the beauty of this is that you have a full webinar to kind of guide you through this thought. The research proposal essay is essentially, in many ways, I think, an extension of the annotated bibliography assignment, particularly in that the research proposal essay, I think, does a good job of taking the information that you've learned through summarizing for the annotated bibliography assignment and putting it into an essay form where you're actually connecting the articles now together so that you can see a cohesive thought, if you will. So one of the things that we have to focus on for this essay is how to write, though, an introduction that leads into body paragraphs that reintroduce your subject matter, but with a different purpose. For the annotated bibliography, your purpose is to inform. And so you're literally just getting the summary of the the articles down on paper so you can see it. It's to inform. The point of the research proposal is to persuade. So the purpose of that is to get your audience to agree that you have done sufficient research in order to answer what's going to be called a research question. In other words, after reading everything that you've read, what question do you have about your research topic that you would like to explore? Okay. And so that's going to be your thesis for this paper. And the articles that you've read are going to be evidence to suggest that you can answer this research question. At the end of this essay, you are going to then give a hypothesis, which is going to be basically an answer to that research question. All right. And so your research question will be your thesis, and the hypothesis, which is the assumed argument or the assumed answer to this research question, will be the second announcement, if you will, of your thesis. All right, so it's an interesting thing. Let's take a look. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to write, like I said, an engaging introductory statement. So we're going to use different strategies to get your audience engaged in your paper so that they want to read more and they want to give you the thumbs up for you to be able to continue with your research project. So that's part one. So we'll talk about eye-catching introductory statements. The next thing you're going to do is you got to connect personally to this topic. So that's where your My Plan assessment is going to come back in. You're going to want to be able to create an argument for how your My Plan results in some way connect to this topic. So you'll need to think about how you're going to do that. Next, again, you're going to ask that research question, and that research question is going to be a how or why question, maybe a what question, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we move on. You're going to learn how to organize your information, again, under topic sentences. The topic sentences will be the main ideas for the body paragraphs. You'll have 2 of those body paragraphs. And then you'll be able to organize the articles under those topic sentences. Topic sentence here, article 1 here, article 2 here, article 3 here, all under the topic sentence, right? Okay, and then we'll move on and we'll talk about how to create a second body paragraph. We got the topic sentence, article 4 here, and article 5 here, all right? The next thing you're going to do is you're going to explain how those 5 articles in some way help to answer your research questions. So we'll be working on that skill as well. Again, this is a summary assignment, so you'll be summarizing everything. Next, I talked about that hypothesis, that second installation of the thesis statement. That'll happen in your conclusion. And then finally, we're going to learn what's called reflect and project. Reflect is basically what you've been writing in terms of conclusion paragraphs, probably since 3rd grade. It is where you summarize the information in your essay. Projection, however, or projecting, is a uniquely collegiate exercise. In the articles you've read for your research, you probably noticed that at the end, in the conclusion section or in the results section, the authors not only address their research and what they've done, they also talk about how this research or how this experiment could be done in the future and maybe some of the limitations of their current research. And so you'll be writing in a similar way as you reflect on what you've done, which is going to be that basic summary at the end of the essay that you're familiar with, but I'm going to push you to learn or to attempt the process of projecting. How can this idea or how can this thought be extended, or how can it be revised or thought about again in the future, and what are some future ideas about it? All right, so that'll be the push this year. All right, so to do that, number one, we want to make sure that we understand what this assignment is about. Again, it's a proposal essay. Its intent is to persuade. The next thing is that you want to know the boundaries for it. So this essay is a short essay. It should be between 700 to 1,500 words. If you get to 1,500 words, you probably said a whole lot. You really should set your margin of understand. I'm sorry, your margin of completion to about 1,200 to 1,250 words. The reason I say that is because anytime you get a word count in a range, usually the expectation from the professor is somewhere in the middle. It's not the lowest unless it's the best thing you've ever written in your entire life and it's 750 words, no errors, no questions asked. It's perfect. If it's 1,500 words, it just means you got excited about it. Really, this essay should be about 1,200 words or so. So just keep that in mind whenever you see a range, your professor's really telling you kind of go in the middle, maybe lean toward the higher end, but you don't have to meet that high end in order to impress them. The next thing is that keep in mind you can only use sources from the preliminary bibliography or annotated bibliography. If you want to get new sources because the ones that you have don't work, you'll just need to send me the bibliographic entry with the permalink, and then I'll send you an approval. The next thing is that you want to make sure that you get this done on time because you'll need to have the results from this to kind of give you ammunition for how you need to do your subsequent introduction paragraphs for your analytical essay and argument essays. I pay very close attention to the introduction and the conclusion. Those weigh heavily in this assignment. So you want to make sure that you're intentional about writing that introduction. All right. The body of this essay is essentially very similar to the annotated, so you'll find that it's easy for you. Keep in mind that the introduction paragraph has 3 movements. It has an introductory statement, which is an eye-catching statement. It has a bridge, which is, it connects the introductory statement or the eye catcher to the research question. So you want to spend some time thinking about this. This will be our work next week. Another thing that you want to pay attention to is the body of this. And this is where I really want to hang my hat today because I want to show you the connection between the annotated bibliography assignment and the research proposal, and it's here in the body. So I want you to look at the body of this assignment. First of all, the new kid on the block is going to be a topic sentence. You need to come up with a topic sentence that's strong enough to compare or at least general enough to connect at least 2 articles together. All right, so you want to look at the articles you have and you want to see what do these articles have in common, right? So I said 2, but ideally it would be 3. And the reason is because your first paragraph is usually your strongest paragraph. And usually when you write, you want to write in what's called emphatic order. And emphatic order means your strongest idea first to your weakest idea. So if you choose a topic sentence that's broad enough to be able to cover at least 3 articles or 3 things that they have in common, or 3 articles and maybe they fight with each other, they have different points of view about the same idea, or in some way they're linked. If you can do that, then you're going to have a very strong introduction paragraph. I'm sorry, a very strong first body paragraph. All right. So that's going to be one of your goals. Keep in mind, this first topic sentence, the effort of it is to try to answer your research question. So you want to come out kind of hitting heavy whenever it's time for you to make your first major point, because keep in mind, this is intended to persuade. All right. So this is relative to what we're doing for the annotated bibliography because of the way that it's structured. So you're going to introduce your first source, which is going to be the first article. Keep in mind, look at this, introduce the author's title. I'm sorry, the author's name, title, journal of the publication, and publication date. See, we're doing it now. So you're going to keep that same type of structure, right? The next thing is you're going to provide significant information about your source as it relates to your research question. So for the annotated bibliography, you are basically writing a summary of the information in general. For the research question and for the body paragraph, you're wanting to make a connection between the content that's in the article as it relates to the research question. Because remember, your goal is to ensure that you are answering that question, not trying to persuade me to get on board with your cause. That's what your final exam is for. This paper is to make a justification for your research, okay? Robert, you have a question, and I want to look at that question. Um, let's see. Your sources. Cited to. Okay, yes, if you have sources that you presented for the preliminary bibliography that are not working necessarily for the annotated, you can go back and get more sources. All you got to do is submit those sources, and then they will be approved, and then you can move on. Okay, that's a great question. You don't need a new entire preliminary bibliography. That's 100% not necessary. All right, we're at the point where we're only looking at 5 sources. The 10 just are there to give you a range of sources to pull from. Did I answer your question? There was another question about plagiarism, and I'm not really sure which question, um, or which part of what I was saying related to plagiarism. I think the main thing that I'd like to say about plagiarism at this point directly is that whenever you write a summary, you want to make sure that you are making that you are summarizing, that you are not directly quoting, and then just changing out some of the words, because that's called patch plagiarism. And so you want to just make sure that you're summarizing and not directly quoting. Um, and you want to make sure that you introduce your sources. The reason I hammer down on that is because if you ever got into a sticky situation where you were called to the dean of students office for plagiarism, you would have a stronger leg to stand on if you at least introduced your sources, so that you made some attempt at a credit, at, at giving credit to the author. It may not be strong enough though for you to, avoid a plagiarism situation, right? So, so you want to make sure that you are following at least the instructions that I'm giving you to a T, because I'm teaching you how to write so that you don't plagiarize. Okay. All right. I hope I answered your question. So, but when we think about the connection between the research proposal and the annotated bibliography, if you notice, this is very similar, okay? But your goal for the research proposal is to try to answer that research question, all right? Uh, the next thing is that you would take the second source and then you would add it under that first source, and then you would, follow the same pattern, okay? And then you go to the next paragraph, you come up with a new topic sentence, and then you would follow the same pattern, all right? And so this stuff is pretty self-explanatory, but I wanted to get to the points where I talked about the connection between the annotated bibliography and the research proposal. Finally, for the conclusion paragraph, we'll do reflect and project. Again, you'll summarize what you said in the essay up until that point, and then you would do a projection where you would try to push out to see how could this research be considered in the future. All right, you close out your essay with a lasting impression statement, something that's nice and strong, where I'm at Chick-fil-A, eating my salad, and I'm thinking about, I really wonder how Janice's statement is going to work out, or I really wonder about if this is actually true. So you want that kind of lingering, lasting impression at the end. All right. So that's really the connection I wanted to make for you, and that's the end of our webinar for today. Does anyone have any questions before we head out? All right. Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate you. Have a good afternoon. See you later.